Welcome. I'm glad to see you guys. My name is Dusty Columbia, and as we're getting started, just while people are logging on, if you'll just go to the chat box and answer the following question: Disney or Pixar, and your favorite example. Dave says Pixar up. Don, Pixar, Monsters, Inc. Joe, Pixar, Cars. Man, that's overwhelming. All right, so we're going to talk today about a community of inquiry research, and we're really focusing on chapter 6. So for today's session, you need to have a web-connected device that has speakers, a laptop, a tablet, or a phone. And you need to have about 10 to 15 minutes of time that you can devote to this. And if you are virtual, access to the Zoom webinar so that you'll be able to pause and continue as we go. So if you will look in the upper left-hand corner, and you can use your emojis or your hand raise to let me know that you can see the red record button, that would be great. All right, thank you. And if you can hear me, let me know, keep your hand up. And then take about 10 to 15 minutes if you can. If you're virtual, you'll be able to pause and come back to this. But for those of us who are here, we are connected. Okay, you can lower your hands. Thank you so much. All right, so we will get started. All right, so we're talking about community of inquiry research. What's our big idea? The purpose in this chapter, we're really looking at chapter 6, where Garrison is really just reviewing the recent COI research and discussing the insights into collaborative educational experiences. So what's clear from this chapter is that the recent research consistently validates the COI framework, and it gives us some ideas about what we can do as educators, how we can use the COI framework in our own teaching, in creating our own collaborative educational environments and experiences. So that's the real question. How can we as educators use the COI framework in designing our own collaborative educational environments and experiences? So our objectives today, we're going to look at how the concept of a theoretical framework can apply to COI and identify some of those components and how they're supported by research. All right, so you guys have already read chapter 6 in our text, which is Garrison's Thinking Collaboratively. And really, again, he's making the case for the COI framework as being both embedded in the learning sciences, but also directly contributing to how we understand thinking and learning when we're in this connected knowledge society as compared to previously when we were in a more industrial kind of society. So I'll give you guys just a moment to go to Padlet again and respond. I'm going to put a link to this in the chat for you. You should see that here. Once you get there, you'll see a prompt. You'll just be able to click right on the board, but our prompt is describe a time when you used inquiry as a learning process in your student career. Virtual listeners, you can access this link. Creating lesson plans for student teaching. Nice. Learning Latin in chorus for Christmas. Wow. That sounds challenging and exciting.
Sorry,
I can see the little dots, so I'm trying to hold off.
It's not working very well for me.
So okay.
Sorry.
We'll click it. That's okay. No, I could just see the dots, and so I didn't want to close off while you were still typing.
I don't want to hold you out.
Yeah, no worries. All right, good then. All right, so as you know, the focus of our chapter was to examine that evidence that supports the COI framework and the insights gained from that research into learning and thinking collaboratively. So we start out just by reviewing that this is an actual framework that we're talking about. And specifically, we're looking at 3 components. First of all, social presence, which is sometimes called affective, depending on the literature that you guys have talked about already, our cognitive presence, and our teaching presence. And then all 3 of those put together, that culminates in this educational experience for our students. So the framework itself is addressing the how and the why of the collaborative educational experience, and how we are considering thinking and learning when we are trying to create purposeful communities of inquiry. In other words, the framework actually provides the lens through which we view, design, and evaluate our educational experiences. So that's how I think about when I think about frameworks that way. I think it's what we look through at all other experience. That was always a helpful metaphor for me. So I'll just ask you all for a quick, thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat. Is that a helpful metaphor for understanding frameworks? Good. Yes. Okay, great. So we have emojis and the chat box. Excellent. So let's take a deeper look at social presence. And now we've already introduced that with our first couple of sessions, but I'll just remind us that when we're talking about social presence, we're really talking about the social presence as the ability of their participants to, first of all, identify with their community. Second, to communicate purposefully in a trusting environment. And then third, we want them to be able to develop interpersonal relationships by projecting their individual personalities. And we're really talking about that research surrounding this. So you may be wondering what the research says about it. And here's what we have learned is that when we have students in their social presence develops mostly through the interactions that are focused on learning. So even though we talk about social being social, the presence develops from the learning parts of that social aspect, not just chatting about how things are going. Second, exchanging ideas contributes to the development of a sense of community for students. Third, the research shows that students use those social interactions primarily for learning, not just hanging out. And their social presence has a really strong influence on student achievement and their satisfaction. And this is particularly true in online learning environments. And while we know this is related, right, this social presence is related to satisfaction, that's mediated through their cognitive engagement. So those are really closely related. And then furthermore, what research is showing us is that within these groups, collaborative groups, having smart people in the group doesn't necessarily make a smart group. It's the social component, things like turn taking, cohesion, social sensitivity, that has a bigger impact on the group's effectiveness and how smart they are. All right, I'll just ask you to go to the chat and then write down one activity that an instructor could do to create some opportunities for social presence in an online class. If you are a virtual learner, I'm putting a link in the chat box for you now where you can go to the Google Slides and you can type that in at a later time. All right, Don, ask students to do online peer review in Google Docs. Excellent. Dave says using Flipgrid to make videos asking each other questions. Okay, nice. And Joe, a fun icebreaker to get to know everyone. Good, yeah, all of those things would be great things to do to increase the social presence. All right, we'll take a little bit deeper of a look at cognitive presence. So cognitive presence, as we know, this is the extent to which the students in however kind of a group they're in, whether it's face-to-face or online or blended in this community of inquiry, it's how they construct meaning through their communication. That's their cognitive presence. And there are so many ways that teachers can help establish cognitive presence. And in just a minute, we're going to look at a huge list of them, and then we'll go through some together. But just to get started before that, regarding what the research says about cognitive presence, first of all, we get some information or some support, like collaborative inquiry through peer support has been shown to positively influence student achievement. And research indicates that the best learning takes place when learners articulate their ideas, which are not fully formed, and they're still learning, and then they continue to articulate that throughout the process of learning. An inquiry based on solving problems engages students and it increases their cognitive presence. And the cognitive presence of collaborative inquiry creates a sense of achievement and learning satisfaction for students. And it can also predict the satisfaction and the persistence of students. I'm going to ask you all to click on this link. This is going to take you to a Google Doc. Once you go there, I'm going to give you a list of ways to establish cognitive presence. So you'll see that list. And then I want you all to choose your top 5, what you think are the top 5 ways that you would like to use. Here, this is the screen for you. I'm going to list of 20 different ways to establish cognitive presence. If you go to that slide 3, you'll see Dave, Dawn, and Joe. You can write your top 5 in there. You can actually just copy it and paste it. It's totally fine. All right, some good stuff popping up. Students leading discussions, low stakes formative assessments, using role playing, grading rubrics, discussion prompts that allow students to deep dive, peer review opportunities with clear rubrics for assessment, right? So that was actually one of the things that came up too several times in this chapter regarding the research, is that transparency with sharing with students what our purpose is, what our intent is, what they need to know is helpful for students. Modeling and supporting diverse points of view, a variety of different types of content assessments, students leading discussion. So thank you all for that feedback. So finally, we'll take a little bit of a deeper look at teaching presence. Now, Garrison is defining that teacher presence as the design, the facilitation, the direction of cognitive and social processes, the processes that we use to realize personally meaningful and educational worthwhile learning outcomes. So we're talking about the nature of the learning task that's assigned to students. The research says that that's one of the key factors in determining how engaged students are going to be. The instructor can guide and assist activities, and this can have a significant impact on completing learning tasks as well. But if we look at it from a broader perspective across larger portions of research, teaching presence is really shown to be actually responsible for the social and cognitive presence. So it's as if it supports those other two areas of our framework. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to take a few more minutes to work together for just a little bit. I'll repost that link in just a second, but it's the same link that you were already in. But we'll have just a little case for us to work on. Mr. Silverland is a new teacher in your department, and he is struggling. He says that he feels like his students are not engaged or learning, and he's come to you for guidance. You go to his classroom and you see the board and the schedule, and Mr. S confirms that this is his daily practice. So he comes in 9:05, bell ringer, 9:10, a lecture on early civilizations. The students take notes, 9:55, explanation of homework assignment, and 10 a.m. dismissal. So I'm going to ask you to offer some specific ideas to Mr. Silverland based on the COI framework, and some specific ideas for developing those teaching, social, and cognitive presences. So you'll work together, you'll identify 1 to 2 strategies for each area for Mr. Silverland, and we'll go over that in just a minute. So I'll give you guys about 5 minutes. Actually, the link is currently there, and give me just a second and I'll put you all in a breakout room. Okay, so if you guys want to jump in, then I'll send you all a message in about 3 or 4 minutes to come back. Dave, do you still have a question, or are you good? All right, you guys came up with some really great ideas for social presence. Do you all want to share?
I'll do social. So we came up with having students say, what they found most interesting in the last class, kind of get them to kind of discuss with each other and find similar ideas, or maybe questions they might have had that were similar to others. And then we also had have students work in small groups on certain assignments, kind of, again, enhance that social presence and kind of bounce ideas off each other as they work on assignments.
Nice, thank you.
For cognitive presence, have both individual activities and some team-based, more public discourse sorts of things.
Nice, thank you.
And then for teaching presence, it's important for the teacher to give feedback to students on what they're doing on previous assignments, so they can use that as formative feedback and apply it. And then the way he's teaching is sit and get, that's what I call it. And that's not effective. And so he needs to create a situation where he's allowing students to discuss, and the teacher's role is then facilitating that discussion.
Nice, thank you. A strong command of those 3 areas of presence. So I want to thank you all very much. You guys have had a really nice, you guys have contributed really nice information to our discussion. If there's anything that you want to discuss further, or if you have any feedback for me, I would be happy to take that.